Hello, everyone. I'm Parikshit Singh, MD, practicing medicine. I think after 27 years, still practicing. I have with me one of the best teachers of Vedanta that I know in present times. So we will find out and learn about what Vedanta is. And we want to talk about his book, which is This is Sanatan Dharma. Sanatan Dharma, to very briefly, can be translated poorly as the universal order or universal harmony. Others have translated it differently. Aldous Huxley called it the perennial philosophy or the eternal philosophy. So, Parthoji, without further ado, let's start with this question.
But before we start, we are also going to discuss the Veda Made Simple.
Okay, we'll discuss that.
Yes.
That's the other book, but it'll, I think, come together in a harmony. So, why is there a need for another religion? You talk about Sanatan Dharma. Do we really need another religion right now in this world that we have so many religions?
No, we don't need another religion. And Sanatan Dharma is not religion in the way we understand the word religion.
Would you describe it as something more spiritual than religion?
I have described Sanatan Dharma as the quest for truth, the quest for the truth of life, the quest for the truth of existence. Sanatan Dharma, in a real sense, begins with the question, what am I? Who am I? What is this existence all about? Where are we going? Where was the beginning? Where is the end? What's the origin? All that. That is how the dharma, or what we call the quest for dharma, begins. And Sanatan, of course, is a Sanskrit word that means eternal, timeless, independent of time and circumstances. So it is independent of time because it was there before time came into being. Let's put it that way. It was there before time came into being, and it'll be there long after time has ceased to be. So what is this dharma? It is the quest for truth. It is also the truth itself. It is the truth that we are, and it is the truth that our existence is.
So dharma is not religion. Dharma,
No.
if we go by the original term, is that which holds us together, or what we can try to lay hold of to understand life. Is that a reasonable understanding?
Yes, that which holds us together. It makes us what we are. As I always say, if you take the dharma out, the being, the entity collapses. There's nothing to hold it together.
So what should be our dharma? You have been studying this for more than 37, 38 years.
Yes, so that's the beautiful thing about dharma. It's not given to you as a one-time thing. You know, many people say you're born into the dharma, but that's not entirely true. You're not born into the dharma. You are, let's say, born into an opportunity that human life is to grow into the dharma. You grow into the dharma.
But what is dharma? Is it a way of being?
It is a way of being that arises from the absolute truth of existence.
But in practical terms.
So there is this absolute truth of existence which is cosmic, even some say extra cosmic, supra cosmic.
Right.
But it is that truth which works its way into the granular details of our existence, into the smallest details of our day-to-day existence. So let's say it's a truth, it's an order of truth and harmony that binds the highest possible supracosmic truth to the smallest, most granular detail of how we live our lives on earth.
Is this truth God?
Is it?
Is this truth God?
One can call it God if you want to. But in Sanatan Dharma, strictly speaking, we don't need to use the word God. But if you do want to use the word God, then you have to describe God as that ultimate absolute reality, which is everything, from the highest possible to the most granular detail.
So God is the ultimate reality. God is from the highest to the most microscopic. Is that how you would
So
describe?
let me say it the way we would say it in Sanatan Dharma. There is an absolute reality.
There is an absolute reality.
Yes,
Okay.
non-relative. By absolute, I mean non-relative.
Yes.
And this reality is everything. It
Is
has become everything. It becomes everything.
yes.
So this universe itself is a self-becoming of that reality.
So if I would describe it in other terms, it's that supreme reality manifesting itself in multiple ways.
Yet that supreme reality becomes
Becomes.
all this. The trees, the grass, the people, forms, you and me, the intelligence, self-consciousness, everything at all. I mean, from the atom to the galaxies, from the first vibration of life to self-conscious, intelligent existence, everything is that reality.
But isn't that the spiritual truth of many of the religions? Would you say this is the truth of almost
Yes,
every religion?
yes, it is the truth of every religion. If we if we go to the heart of every religion,
Yes.
whether that happens or not is another story, but if we do go to the source of every religion, the heart of every religion, then yes, it's the same. It's the same reality that we are talking about.
So let's go back. You are saying there is one supreme reality, one truth.
Yeah.
How do we know that? How can I, being a doctor, being a human being, being a social citizen, how can I understand and try to connect?
So if you ask this question from the intellect, intellectually, you probably cannot know it.
Okay.
Because that would be like a small part of a whole trying to know the whole.
Like a drop trying to know the ocean.
Like a drop trying to know the ocean, absolutely, yes. So, though the drop would be a drop off the ocean, but it cannot know the ocean. So, for it to know the ocean, it has to cease first being a drop, if we take the analogy further. So, if you and I want to know this reality, we first have to drop the mind.
Drop the mind.
Drop the mind, drop the thinking mind,
Okay.
drop the rational, logical mind,
Okay.
and enter what is called the silence of the soul. Enter the silence that is always behind all our mental activities.
Okay.
And as you go deeper into that silence, subtler layers of existence open up to you. You begin to experience within yourselves. You begin to experience within yourself realities that you cannot see and touch and feel. Not empirical reality, but these are, let's say, subtler or higher orders of reality.
So we can feel this reality right now as we are talking,
If
discussing.
yes, if you're tuned into that frequency, then yes.
Okay. Can you make us experience it
No,
now?
it, it needs a certain training first.
Okay.
A certain meditativeness of being, because with the mind always in an agitated, excited condition, it's not possible to bring that experience straight away. So, like when we first started learning this, we had to spend years in just cultivating inner silence.
So being quiet,
Being
does that help?
quiet, yes, and this might sound a bit strange, but not thinking.
Not thinking. Okay.
the mind learns to be still.
But isn't the Sanatana Dharma a process of inquiry? You inquire, you question,
Yeah,
and
it
through
is.
that questioning you
You go deeper.
discover. So
Yes.
how can you be questioning at the same time?
So
And
that's a good question, because most people, when we say inquiry, they think it's a mental process, but it's not a mental process.
okay,
It's a meditative process, let's say. I'll explain that. So I want to know what I am. So the moment I look at myself to understand what am I, the first thing I encounter is my thoughts, a lot of thoughts, my projected mental personality, a
yes,
lot of intellectual activities, a lot of knowledge that I've acquired over the years, all that.
right,
And I look at that and I say, that's me. So I look deeper into that. This is what I call myself. And I see all my conditionings, my childhood conditionings, the memories of all my experiences, things that I've acquired, learned. No. And then I ask, is that really me? Is that all that I am about? And if that is me, is that natural to me, or is that something that has been added onto me? Is that something that I've acquired as I've grown? And the more I look into this, the more I begin to see, no, there's something behind it which is not acquired, which is not conditioned,
right.
something that is behind this continuous thought activity. And then I begin to look at that in a sort of a background, and I begin to discern the first movements of something which is not intellectual or mental in me. And that is how inquiry, the process of inner inquiry, takes me from one level to another. And as our seers have said, this is an endless process. It's an eternal quest.
So an endless process of discovery of our own truth. Is that how you would
Yes,
describe Sanatana Dharma?
yes,
To
yes,
discover who we are, our reality.
yes. I would say the first stage would be the inquiry,
Inquiry, yeah.
and through inquiry, going deeper into our existential reality, and then beginning to touch that something deeper, the deeper self in us, which is not a construct of our experiences and memories. And then touching that, we begin to draw a little bit of that into our external lives and personalities. So what I begin to discover deep inside, I begin to bring out into the way I live my life, the way I interact with people, the way I do my work. So that deeper dimension of my being begins to touch and transform my outer life, the way I live in the world. And the more we do that, I do that, you do that, several other people start doing that. The more we do that, the more society begins to change. Look, there's a deepening in our collective being as well. So that all of it would be Sanatana Dharma.
So let's look at the steps again. The mind grows quiet. It doesn't take all the chatter. We have been given ideas about ourselves, who we are. For example, I have a certain role to play. This is who I am. A definition has been given to me. So I drop those definitions, all those tags, and I'm moving
Identities, we call them.
all identities that I've taken since childhood. We have been given. This is how things are. And you have talked about looking at the world of name and form.
Yes.
This is name and form.
Nam Rupa. Yeah.
This is a
yes.
book, so I see only the book.
Right.
But I never really look at what it is.
Right. Yeah.
Or, for example, that tree, I know there's a tree, so I don't even look at what there is.
Right. Because you've named it, you've labeled it.
So, can I learn to see without the label at what there is?
Yeah. Yes. So if you take the name, the label tree away,
Yes.
you're looking at something that you don't know. You don't know what it is.
So it's something totally mysterious.
Absolutely. Every single thing that we can see is a mystery. You don't. It's Okay, so I look at that and I give it a name. I've been taught that it's a tree.
Right.
So I give it a name. It's a tree. And I can even give it a name, and this is a XYZ tree.
Right.
And then I rest satisfied with this kind of knowledge that, I know it's a tree and it's XYZ tree, and the tree is made up of cells, and,
Right.
I can give you the whole botany of it if I have learned it in school.
Right.
But is that really what it is? I mean, these are just names. What is it? Our physicists have tried to go into matter to understand what is matter.
Right.
And they've finally uncovered layers of matter that cease to be matter altogether. It's no
Right.
longer matter. So the deeper you go into matter, matter ceases to matter.
Right. So let's hold your thought right now, because we have to hold our thought. So we look at the world of name and form,
Yeah.
and it really is something that's given to us. It's a condition. Now we start looking at things as they are, and suddenly we realize that it's an absolutely mysterious universe,
Yes.
if we can even use that word, because even those are words given to us.
Yes. Yes.
And
So, yeah, I agree.
and you start looking. There is a seeing.
So you start looking with a sense of wonder
Right.
that actually we lost since we were very young children. I think the sense of wonder was there with us when we were very young children.
Yes.
The moment we were taught what the world is, the moment schooling began, and schooling begins at home.
Right.
Your parents tell you, this is a cup,
Right.
and this is water, that's a tree, etc., etc. So the moment I'm taught, I lose the sense of wonder, and it's that the wonderment is replaced by knowledge,
Mental knowledge.
mental knowledge, or as the Gnostic Christians used to say, the innocence is lost, is replaced by experience.
Right.
So a lot of Sanatan Dharma and its movement is about returning to that innocence, returning to that sense and state of wonder where you don't know mentally and you don't care about knowing mentally.
Yes.
You're just looking upon a wonderful world, literally wonderful, because you don't know what.
You can't even call it a world, because
You
even
can't
that
even
word
call
is
it a
gone.
world. Yes, and if you look at everything around you without labels, very soon you'll begin to have this experience that what you're looking at and what in you is looking out at all this, they're not separate, they're not different.
Right.
It's the same reality that is looking upon itself.
So let's take
And
a
that's where what we call the first sense of the divine begins.
so something is looking at something. We
And-
cannot we have put labels on it, but if we take the labels away and we are in a state of mystery and wonder,
Yes.
then something radical changes. And
Yes, so in that state of wonder where you're not naming or labeling,
right.
your mind becomes quiet. Your mind is no longer continuously, I say, agitated by knowledge.
Right. So you're not looking for mental answers.
So it's quiet here,
yes.
and you're experiencing reality very quietly. So very soon, the reality you're experiencing out there
Right.
and the you that's experiencing this reality are no longer separate. You are the reality experiencing itself. And that is a mystical experience. So Sanatana Dharma, truly followed, brings you to the threshold of the mystic.
So you're moving from a thought or a concept to the real experience. Would you call that experiential state?
Yes.
Even the concept that who we are is dropped. If we say this is who I am, we drop that. I have a name,
Yeah.
but that is also something given to
Yes,
me.
yes. The question, who am I, leads you to the understanding that the question itself is meaningless.
Because I can't answer it mentally.
Yeah, because being is infinite.
Being is infinite.
Yes, you can only ask what this is in terms of a finite existence. So if your being were finite, you would perhaps ask, what am I? But if being is infinite, where did the question rise? Who's there to question?
So the moment I start questioning like this and drop all the answers that have been given to me, by society, by
by
culture,
culture, yes,
by somebody else, I start looking for myself.
yes.
Or let me remove even the word I. There is looking. You
There is
you
looking, there is perception, yeah,
actual perception.
yes,
Then something beautiful happens,
yes,
and your journey of exploration begins. But this journey can go layer after layer after layer. Am I right?
yeah, yes. It does go layer after layer, and it's a lifetime's journey.
So, this book, coming back to your book, Sanatan Dharma, you give us a very broad frame of reference. In fact, I cannot think of a broader frame of reference. There is one reality, which means everything is secretly connected, interconnected, is one,
Yeah.
even though we don't see it.
We are part of that reality.
Since we are
We are
part,
that reality. So
so,
unless you step back from what you are
right.
and go into your, what do I say, meditative poise, you sort of step out of yourself
Right.
and learn to look at yourself and the universe from, see, I don't have words for all this. It's because it's neither objective nor subjective.
If there
So
is only looking, witnessing, would you
it's
call it?
witnessing, which is also the experiencing of the reality as it is. So it's a totality of experience. So
Right.
in that, the sense of the observer and the sense of the observed have, the difference is gone.
So you cannot say this is I and that's rest of the
Yes, you
world.
can no longer say that because what I'm experiencing there is me. Where do you draw the line? Where do you say that this is my boundary and that is the outside world? There is no such boundary. What I'm experiencing as the so called outside world is myself. And what
So,
I'm experiencing as myself is that one total single reality.
so if this is all one reality, why is there so much pain and suffering and darkness in this one reality? Or is this a wrong question?
It depends on who. For me, there is no such thing. So I don't relate to these questions because there is no pain or suffering. It's all stories we create in the mind. All the pain and suffering is here. But then you will say, no, what about the real suffering out there? So we get into a very philosophical discussion, which
So we do see
doesn't
that
lead here. Yeah.
in our medical field, we see that trauma in the childhood, and yet it sticks, and the story continues, unfortunately, of that trauma.
Yeah.
And the person is never able to live down that trauma.
Yeah.
Although the actual injury is gone,
Yes, the memory of it
the
remains.
memory
Yeah.
remains. But if you start dropping name and form, wouldn't the memory be gone?
Yes, and there are methods, there are paths in Sanatana Dharma where there are very trained teachers, facilitators who can actually get into your consciousness and clean out those memories that cause you so much pain and suffering.
To go
And
back,
and and there are methods. We call it yoga, not the physical yoga. This is psychological, psycho-spiritual yoga. So there are yogic methods which can be taught and learned by just about anyone who's interested in this. And there are several which are already popular yogic methods where you can go deeper and deeper into the consciousness, into your consciousness, till you reach a point where you touch a self within which is no longer a constructed self, which is no longer a fabricated self. It's what we would call the pure self that transcends all its experiences, both positive and negative. And the moment you touch that self, there is a powerful healing that happens. That's an enormously powerful healing that not only heals yourself, it sort of radiates out of you and heals the environment, heals, you know. So all this is within this yoga of the Sanatana Dharma.
so what I'm seeing is, suppose you have a big frame of reference. You cannot have a bigger frame of reference. All reality, all existence is one reality, manifesting, expressing itself in different ways. How do the religions fit in?
So
into this.
let me turn the tables on
Right.
you. So, and like you've written a book on the Veda made simple, and as you would know, the Veda is we consider to be the foundation of Sanatana Dharma.
Right.
So, if I were to ask you the same question, the relationship, if any at all, between what we call religion and Veda, and the context of Veda in Sanatana Dharma, how would you respond to that question?
So the Veda is actually, for those who do not know, is humanity's first attempt to understand the mystery of the universe through symbols, through sound, through ideas of one reality manifesting itself in multiple myriad ways.
So the same thread.
Same thread. And the beauty of the Veda is it doesn't belong to any religion, although we try to say it is, Indian or Hindu. It began much before there was an India or there was a Hindu religion. So really it belongs to all humanity. It is humanity's first attempt. Our forefathers, and I'm not trying to, since we are dropped labels, our forefathers, doesn't matter which culture they're from, which geography they're from, they attempted to discover what is this world. And 5,000, 6,000 years ago, they started an oral tradition. And it's
and 6,000 years ago, there were no such defined cultures or geographies or
no, there was
countries
no,
or religions.
because the present theory is there was a Proto-Indo-European language, which means, at least as far as we know, the Indic languages and the European languages came from the same source. The Indic religions and European religions came from the same source. Same for the philosophy, same from the culture. When we look at the linguistics, Sanskrit, ancient Greek, Latin share a secret source. Even today in English, and suppose these diversified languages we start comparing, we'll find root words are the same.
Right.
Mother in English, Ma in Hindi, Matri in Sanskrit, Mater in Latin. So the sounds are there. The original language that our ancestors, forefathers had has come down to us, and we are still living that. We don't realize it, but we are still carrying on those ancient memes, as it were, and we are living those. Same, our symbols are the same. So to me, it's fascinating that it's one family that created something in the beginning, then it diversified. It's like one river breaking into so many streams, but eventually it has to come into one ocean.
So would you call Veda, which the root word of Veda itself
is to know?
To know.
Veda
knowledge.
is to know. Like Veni Vidi Vici, right? Caesar, what did he say? I came, I saw, I conquered. Yeah. So video, with the word today, and we use in English, is Veda, same word. To wit. Wit has the same word as the
same root sound.
Same root as vid, which is the ancient.
So would you say the Veda, therefore, is the original human spiritual quest and knowledge?
I would.
Then, as it came down the generations, it became so many religions and cultures.
Yes. So, I mean, Sri Aurobindo said that it is one document of humanity, and think of it as our shared legacy. Our legacy is our earth, it is our legacy as the moon, it is our legacy as these trees and our children and the soil, as we talked earlier, and our music. It is our shared legacy. And if we can understand just that, to me it was a revelation. To just understand that suddenly I cannot think in terms of Indian, European, Middle Eastern, American. These were our human forefathers. And it's beautiful how they attempted to understand that one reality through images, through symbols. And their understanding is something that we can learn from, because their understanding of that one reality was not a divisive reality. That reality has infinite manifestations, and we cannot limit that reality to an abstract. It's a living, dynamic reality.
So interesting, because when So what we were talking about in Sanatan Dharma, so this is why we consider Veda to be the foundation of Sanatan Dharma. It is this one reality which is brought into human experience.
But you have turned the tables on me. I was
Yes.
supposed to be questioning you.
Doesn't matter who's
Okay.
questioning who.
Okay, so yes, see, what we have done is created, and mentally, maybe it's not our great spiritual leaders who experienced that. We've kind of categorized them mentally. So we
Right.
have put a God outside somewhere, sitting up on the floating on the clouds, and the cloud is just judging. The God is just judging us, and it's just like a schoolmaster of souls. That's what, as Blake described it. But that's a construct of the mind. But if we go back to our original expressions, even to our spiritual leaders, whether it's the Buddha, whether it's Christ, they're describing something much deeper.
Yes.
And if we can touch that, then we will find that somewhere there are connections that, if we can find those, that much of our sense of separation, I and them, that I will only follow this tradition into which I'm born, suddenly that's taken away, because there is no tradition in which I'm not born. How can I say that?
That's a nice way of saying that. There's no tradition into which we are not born.
So, if the Egyptian priests were connected to this knowledge when there was no Egypt, and if the pre-Socratic, Orphic, Eleusinian oracles were connected to this, and it's a very different way of expressing that reality, we must understand that. It was a different language, how language was used. Or the Magi of Persia, the way they expressed reality. If they did not have those divisions, why are we insisting on those divisions? They did not have the nationalistic divisions or the cultural divisions. Suddenly, I realized that there is no tradition, no culture that I cannot learn from or adopt from that is not mine. Every culture, every religion, every tradition I can learn from. As myself, I'm not saying it's a prescription for everyone. That's what I learned, I think. And suddenly, that, at least mentally, that block went away, that no, I have to justify myself constantly. Suddenly, I don't need to justify why things are being done in a certain way in India or in America or in Europe, because my identification suddenly grows into a wider realm, and suddenly I'm a human, and we are all humans. At least that's how I touch this.
Yes, and that's exactly what the expression of Sanatan Dharma is.
Okay, so that was smart of you to turn it on me, to give the answers that I'm asking questions for,
And to
through
make you
my
answer your own
answers.
question.
Okay, so let me ask you a question that has come up, and you have talked about the Gita in here, which is a very important book in a certain context, in the Indic context, where, just very briefly, Arjuna has to fight a righteous war. And those who have watched the movie Oppenheimer would relate to it. And Sri Krishna, who is his mentor, his teacher, his friend, is telling him to fight the righteous war. We're talking about non-violence here. And then we are going to Sri Krishna, who's saying, if you need to fight, then you must fight. Well, what are your thoughts on that?
So the Dharma Yudh that we talk about is not the righteous war, really. It's a war to restore the balance of the universe. So there are two fundamental forces that work through the universe: the evolutionary forces and the forces that push back evolution, spiritual evolution, evolution of consciousness.
Forces of light and forces of darkness.
Yes, the forces of light are the forces that help in the evolution. These are the evolutionary forces. And the forces of dark would be the forces that don't want us to evolve, that want to push us back into a state of what in Sanskrit we call tamas, state of going back to rest.
Inertia?
Inertia, unconsciousness and inertia.
Yes.
So between the balance, the equilibrium of the universe is maintained by these two forces. So when uh, the forces of darkness begin to preponderate, then an intervention is needed to bring back the equilibrium, the balance. And that is what was happening on the battlefield where the Gita is set.
So aligning with the forces of light
Yes,
is your dharma. Would you say that?
absolutely, yes. That's how I've described it in the book.
Aligning with the forces of harmony, of truth.
Light and truth and harmony, that's dharma.
Okay.
And whatever goes against light and truth and harmony is adharma.
So you're not advocating passivism.
There cannot be when darkness threatens to engulf you. You cannot be passive. You got to take a stand and you got to fight back. And sometimes you have to fight back to the end.
So what about the non-violence that we are taught?
It's qualified. Non-violence, just like violence, is qualified. It's a qualified stance, a qualified approach to life. You cannot always be violent. You cannot always be non-violent.
But if you are standing for light and truth, then you are not violent.
Yes. If you're standing for light and truth, sometimes the light and truth will fight from within you. And the fight is not always what we see out there as a battle or a war. Fight is going on inside us all the time. We are fighting forces of ignorance and darkness and lethargy and forces of everything that makes you shrink as a being. We are fighting all that within ourselves all
So
the
it's
time.
an internal battle.
It is internal first.
Internal
Then
first.
it comes out, it projects itself, it's an external battle, but all our battles are first internal.
Okay. So a probable analogy to this would be when Hitler was threatening to swallow the entire globe and we had to fight him. We had to push him back, push the darkness.
Yes.
Would that be a dharma, following dharma?
Absolutely, yes.
So there is a philosopher, so-called philosopher, who is supposedly very upset with the Gita. It is the most obscene, disgusting sacred book, he called it, because
Is there such a philosopher?
I'm so-called. That's why I said so-called. But from what you are telling me, that standing up for the truth is not violence.
No.
Never.
It may lead to, it's a very simple thing. If someone is standing in front of me and confronting me with a falsehood, and I know it's a falsehood, I have the option of accepting that falsehood,
Yes.
or I have the option of resisting that falsehood. I
Yes.
can look the falsehood in the eye and say, no, I'll have none of it. This is not true. And there I stand. So if you're sensitive, the other person knows that this person is standing up, and if the truth, the force of truth is not there, he or she backs off.
But isn't truth relative and subjective?
Yes, it is relative. So first, we have to learn to stand for our own truths. I mean, we don't know any other truth except our own. I mean, the one truth that I know is what I know is my truth. That's the truth I can stand. I can't stand for an abstract truth.
Right.
I must stand for my truth.
Right.
And I must live for my truth. And then that which I call my truth must widen, heighten, and deepen into a more universal truth, into a more timeless truth. That's my journey. That's the journey of every human being, from the personal truth to the universal truth and to the divine truth finally. But at each step, at every stage, we must learn to stand for the truth that we know, that
Right.
we have realized so far.
So let's look at the state of the world right now. And I know we are running out of time, but very last question. You have one side against the other. We see that everywhere, whether it's political parties, whether it's different. And I cannot say that any one party is standing for the truth. They all have mixtures of darkness.
So that yes, that's the nature of the world we live in. We don't live in a truth consciousness. We live in a consciousness that's a mixture. falsehoods, partial truths, uh, shadows.
So how can I
We
change the
don't.
world?
That. I'm sure we'll need another
No,
discussion.
but suppose I want to do good in the world, but I know I'm full of falsehood myself. How do I
Yes. So to
change?
do good in the world, I must first understand my own falsehoods and get rid of all my falsehoods that I'm aware of. I must first become aware of my falsehoods, my shadows. Then I must be able to bring the light into those falsehoods, into the shadows. The more illumined I can become, the better I do for the world. There's no other way of doing good to the world. I have to become illumined within myself. Illumined, light, truth. That's what I mean.
So there's no such thing as, okay, I'm going to fix the world
No,
without
I don't
first
think
fixing
any
myself.
of us can fix the world.
Is it the same process, fixing myself and fixing the world?
Yes, because ultimately, in the final analysis, we are the world. So what we do within ourselves, we are doing out there in the world.
Okay, I think that was
That too is that's Sanatana Dharma.
and there is so much to talk about the eternal philosophy. We can't cram it up in 30 minutes. But I think it's at least a good sense. Hopefully, you'll have a taste of what is to come and the questioning without dropping the questioning, ceaseless questioning, relentless questioning, and hopefully, we will all be able to start looking within and looking at the darkness and the twists within. And hopefully, as we work on ourselves, we will work towards helping each other and the world. Is that a reasonable understanding?
Absolutely, yes.
Thank
and
you for.
Amen to that and Om to that.
Why am I answering all this? You are supposed to say all these.
What's the difference?
Okay.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
So there was some relentless inquiry which he was able to ward off by passing it on back to me. But shall we allow some questions or we have run out of time? One or two questions. Each question will take half an hour. But we'll try. Any questions? All questions are answered. We're good. Yeah, what he does is he claims ignorance. He says, I don't. As the truth. Yes. No questions? Mike, you have some questions? Not here. He's too shy. Well, thank you, everyone. We appreciate you. And Partho ji, we always appreciate you looking at the barrage of questions and then just reflecting it back to the questioner. That's the best strategy that I've learned from you.
Thank you.
We have a question.
I just have a statement because I listen to you folks and I love it. I love philosophy, love science, and I love spirituality. So mine is not a question, but more of a statement because it's all about resonancy. Sound is what causes matter to come into being. Sound, vibration, frequency. That's why we're so attracted to music. So I say to you and I say to everyone here, we are all made up of 7 trillion atoms. So we are the conscious conductor of a living symphony, composing its music daily. The question is, as we're composing our music of life, what are we resonating and writing and singing and doing for others to listen to? Because it's not about just you. If it's always just about you, it'll never be about you.
I think that's a very beautiful, poetic way of describing it, and I have no disagreement. I saw your butterflies, and I love it, and that itself is a manifestation of the divine power. All of it is.
Hello, I have a question.
Hi, Linda.
Hi. From butterflies back to war. When Dr. Parikshit asked you about violence and nonviolence and the Dharma Yudh or the just war, I was pretty unsatisfied with your answer. Every state, every ruler, anywhere, including right now today, justifies their horrific aggressions, wars, killings, and worse, by saying we're the forces of light and our enemies are the forces of darkness. That's just way too easy to excuse the horrific violence of war. Yeah, sometimes somebody always mentions Hitler. Oh yeah, like Hitler, we're going to get rid of the evil. It's not like that. It's not that simple to deal with the problem of violence and nonviolence. And Yeah, the Kurukshetra war was described as being one of incalculable bloodshed. Of course, you know that. I just don't want it to be so easy for you to back off and say, well, sometimes the forces of light, you have to use violence. So that's it.
Yeah, I agree with you. And this is not a question to answer so easily. It's a very complex question. And it needs profound understanding and experience of life to be able to even start thinking about this question. But that's the way it is.
Yeah,
People will misuse it. People will use
Yes.
that as an excuse to fight.
Absolutely. It's far deeper as a spiritual metaphor. The whole book is a deeper depiction of or the fight within ourselves for us to use it superficially. So your point is well taken, and we all need to take it far more with greater sensitivity and understanding, empathy and compassion. Yeah.
And if I may add that if the question is very, very important, then maybe we can have 1 hour of discussion outside of, because I know time is very important for
It's
the
yes.
Awaken Florida. But sometime, whenever, I mean, even if there are 3-4 of you interested, we can sit down and have a more in-depth discussion on this.
Thank you, Linda. We appreciate you. And Linda, if people don't know her, is a legend in her own right. She has translated Kabir, the great saint of India from the 14th century, or correct me if I'm wrong, who tried to bring the various communities together and bring us to a non-denominational view of the truth and reality in God. So we appreciate that comment. We understand that, and we completely respect that and agree with it. So thank you, everyone, for listening. It's been a great pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Singh, and thank you, Partho, for that invigorating session.